Welcome to Author Update, your weekly dose of publishing news that actually matters to your career.
This week, OpenAI just announced the inevitable ads are coming to ChatGPT, and we'll break down what that means.
Foretold of old.
Man, it was good while it lasted. A federal appeals court just ruled that copyright termination for publishers now applies globally. So we'll dive into that and talk about how you can reclaim foreign rights that you thought were gone for you forever. We'll expose why Christian publishers are setting record Bible sales, but tanking on everything else, and then explain why the font war actually matters for your book design.
Zeitgeist!
Yes. Zeitgeist! All right, so let's get started with our first story. AI ads are finally here. AIDS. OpenAI has announced that they're rolling out. I'm probably not going to be allowed to call it that, am I? I should probably not call it that because now it's all I want to call it.
So this is breaking news. This was announced just a couple of hours ago. OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT, is rolling ads into the free version of ChatGPT.
Hooray.
So let's talk about what it means. If you're at the $8 plan or lower, you may start to see ads. Now, at the moment, they're not influencing the response. So the answers that you're getting back from ChatGPT are the same. And ChatGPT also hasn't announced any sort of like portal for like self-serve buying of ads, because we will be following this closely, because as an advertiser, placing ads in front of ChatGPT's 300 million users, 800 million users.
Yeah.
That's a lot of users. That's more, that's twice the population of America. So as soon as you can place ads in ChatGPT, we will announce it. We'll be following it closely. I imagine there's going to be some first mover advantage. Usually how this thing rolls out is these companies, as they're rolling ads into a product for the very first time, they only work with like top shelf advertisers, your Nikes, your Apple, your BMW type brands, to try to give it this gloss of we're cool, we're with the cool kids, this is where the big dogs advertise. And then eventually your local plumbing company will be able to buy ads on ChatGPT, but that's often not for a while. And unfortunately, authors are typically lumped into the local plumbing self-serve ads kind of approach, partly because authors aren't spending big money on ads. So if you have $1 million ad buy, you get an account manager, you get to fly out to the headquarters, you get to talk to people. If you have a $5,000 ad buy, you get a portal and you can click some buttons and do it yourself. So that's kind of how it works here. And this is a big deal. In some ways, they're like, okay, how is this a big deal? But it's a big deal, and it's the first time that an AI product has got ads added to it. And we're going to be seeing this across the board with all of the free tiers. There's nothing for free. And if you're not the customer, you're the product. So they've been harvesting your data this whole time if you're using the free version of ChatGPT. If you pay, they don't harvest your data, and they're not going to serve you ads. But the peasant version of ChatGPT is going to become a little more.
We'll see how that happens. Hulu has been bumping up the ads-free service a lot. A lot of tiers are being devoured by the ads monster. OpenAI has been emphatic, and you should always pay attention to what the company is being emphatic about, because it might be the opposite thing. Conversations are not shared with advertisers, and you have full control over data used for targeting. Of course, as authors, people are often dumping a lot of very sensitive information into the conversations that they're having with the AI. And there was a lot of concern that, oh, well, now OpenAI is harvesting this and sending it to advertisers so that advertisers know how to target us more. They say that that's not what's happening. What I see, though, is that OpenAI does have the information that you are putting into these conversations, and they can do the targeting themselves. So when they choose what ads to serve, it's going to be based on what you're talking to ChatGPT about. So far on the free tier. Of course, when we get into the shadows, I'm pretty sure a lot is happening.
Which is what happened with Facebook. So Facebook doesn't really let you do much targeting. The pressure is for you to let Facebook do the targeting. You define what the success criteria is, making a purchase, clicking a link or whatever. And then Facebook's machine learning algorithm will find you users will do whatever it is that you want them to do. And this, because it's done by the machine learning algorithm, it allows them to profile and discriminate and all the things that would be illegal if a human did it on purpose. But because it's being done by a machine learning algorithm that literally no human understands. So the whole point of machine learning is that the computer is programming itself to accomplish the objective that you gave it.
Yeah.
And the objective is not an illegal objective. Selling more copies of my book is not an illegal objective. But you can't target Christians on Facebook. You can target other groups on Facebook. In fact, you can target almost all of the other groups, but you can't target Christians because Facebook systemically discriminates against Christians and has for years and years. But the machine learning algorithm will serve your ads to Christian readers, no problem. So if you're a Christian author, you have to feed it to the machine learning algorithm. OpenAI is going to have that machine learning approach from the beginning. They're not, I suspect they're actually probably going to have a pretty easy to use interface when they roll it out, because you'll basically just talk to OpenAI and say, I want people to buy my book. And then OpenAI is going to be like, okay, give me money. And then OpenAI will try to find you people who buy your book, and you can see if it's profitable or not. So we'll see how it goes. We'll keep monitoring this. This is really cutting edge. Like, the tweet just came out. This is why we're leading with this story. But it's not actually the biggest story of the day. We'll get to that in just a minute. But there's one story, a small story, but the royalty analyzer, which is one of the Patron Toolbox tools that I built. It's a tool where you upload your royalty statement, and you can also upload a marketing log of what you've done, marketing activities, and it will analyze your royalty statement and give you marketing analysis. And this has been in the experimental section of the Patron Toolbox for a long time. And a publisher found this tool. I know this because somebody took their $10 subscription to the Patron Toolbox and in one day ran up $85 worth of tokens on the royalty analyzer, uploading book after book after book. So there's now a limit on the royalty analyzer and a few of the other tools where you can use it 10 times in a month, which for an author is plenty of times. If you have more than 10 royalty statements to analyze as an author, email me. Also email me if you hit the limit and you're not supposed to. I also put this on the book cover generator and a few other tools. If you're using a tool for the first time and you're getting you can't use this, you've used up your limit, please email me, because there is a bug somewhere that we can't regularly reproduce. Where some people are seeing that error in error where they haven't used up their uses. So we will monitor that and go from there. All right, so we'll get to the court case here in a second and the copyright laws that are changing. But first, I want to talk about the Bridgerton author Julia Quinn and a very interesting new approach to growing your audience. Jonathan, what's the story here?
Julia Quinn announced that a romance book subscription service called JQ Editions. Basically, what it is she's curating, hand-picking a group of romance novels, and she's going to send those out in subscription boxes. Now, there's going to be 3 books launched in 2026 and then 6 more in 2027. It looks like the 2027 subscription box will be going out through her website. She's just using Kickstarter to launch this project, but it will not be actually administered through Kickstarter repeatedly. It's a beautiful edition. We're talking the sprayed edges. We're talking book vault level of creating a beautiful book and sending it out to mostly women who love these collector's editions. And that's what it's designed to be. It's collector's editions, premium editions. They're going to go out. I anticipate a ton of influencers jumping on this bandwagon to talk about the Bridgerton author is creating beautiful books, highlighting authors. I mean, if a romance author can jump onto this train and get selected as a JQ edition, that's going to be a big boost. I mean, that's guaranteed sales from people who bought the subscription, and they're buying the subscription because of Julia Quinn. You've got the Bridgerton author, and your book is automatically in this subscription box. It's a great gift idea around Christmas. Hey, give your favorite reader a JQ Editions subscription box.
And this is a very reproducible strategy that any author can do, particularly if you're in a really big genre. So romance is this really big genre. And for new readers who are just discovering the genre, it's kind of overwhelming, the number of options. And I'm not talking about the number of titles. I'm talking about the number of subgenres. Right? Like you go to the romance section and there's like 30 subgenres. You click on one of those and each one of those has another 5 subgenres. And if you're not fluent in what all of these words mean and what all these subgenres mean, it can be a little overwhelming. But if you knew you liked Bridgerton, or you knew you liked such and such book, and that author is personally vouching for other authors, that's really powerful.
And you look at the metadata on your favorite book. I mean, small town, billionaire, enemies to lovers, historical romance. Yeah, that's Pride and Prejudice, son. that's the metadata for Pride and Prejudice.
That's right. So you could reproduce this. This is a really great way of combining your audience with other authors. A couple of things to keep an eye out for. One is you have to understand that publishing is a power law determined industry. And I almost feel like I have to bring this up every episode because our brains can't handle the power law. We can't think in terms of logarithmic scale and how much more popular a best-selling author is than the 100th best-selling author. So if you were to list the top 100 authors in a genre, we might think, oh, the number 1 best-selling author might sell 100 times more books than the number 100 best-selling author. No, that author might be selling 10,000 times, 100,000 times more books than the 100th one. And so the person who needs to run this, if you have a group of friends and there's 4 of you authors and you all write the same kind of fiction, the author who needs to put their name on the campaign is the most popular author. Because likely, if there's 4 authors, one of those authors has more readers and subscribers and clout than the other 3 put together. That's just how power law distributions work. And if none of you have that, this isn't going to be a strategy that works very well.
Yeah.
So if you have 2 or 3 readers or 2 or 3 dozen readers and you team up with a few friends that each have 2 or 3 dozen readers, you will get 2 or 3 dozen sales. So there's no synergy here. But if you can team up with a powerful author, and this is a really great way for a powerful author to make money off of other authors' books, right? Because they're effectively acting as a publisher, right? It's a special edition, and the author with the big name gets a bite at the apple, and that's totally worth it to give a famous author a bite at the apple to sell your book to her readers automatically through some sort of subscription box like this. So this is a strategy we'll be following really closely. Keep an eye on it. And consider, if you're coming to a place like the Novel Marketing Conference, you're building your network, this is something to keep an eye out for. Is this an author I could potentially combine forces with for an Avengers level event on Kickstarter?
Keep in mind, like Kickstarter particularly services certain genres like sci-fi, fantasy does really well on Kickstarter. So like say you have a bunch of guys who are writing Space Marine fiction. There are guys out there who will buy a subscription box to Space Marine fiction. And it doesn't have to be premium edition stuff. They don't really care. They just want their next book for that month, you know? So keep that in mind. That's stuff, this kind of thing will work because there are readers out there who are voracious. I don't see it working as much for like literary. That's not a bundle or a subscription box.
If you have the right literary person who's putting their literary stamp of approval that this is top
who
shelf,
is selecting it, sure.
Right.
But it's better called a book club instead of a subscription box.
Yeah.
Because when we get into literary, you want to use different terms. There's a different vocabulary you want to use.
It's not a corn dog at that point. It's a beef Wellington, right?
Correct.
Totally a different kind of food.
It's beef Wellington on a stick. All right. Speaking of Kickstarter, if you don't know how to use Kickstarter, I've got the thing for you. The next Author Arsenal episode will be dropping tonight. I hope. I have the filming set up and the editing doesn't take very long. I will run it tonight. There will be a tutorial at the end on how to set up a Kickstarter campaign. So if you want to know how to set up your own bundle subscription service or just using the Kickstarter platform in general, I will be there to help you through that. Now, to the topic that we advertise this with. Federal court says that copyright rights reversion now extends globally. Creators who exercise those rights, so let's say you go to your publisher and you get your rights back. Before that only came back to you in the US. Now, when you signed your contract, you signed away foreign rights. Usually, boilerplate contracts usually require you to sell all rights to the publisher. But when they reverted, the publisher would only give you the US rights, which if you wanted to get translations in the EU or in India, which just opened up on Amazon, or any of these other places, you didn't get your rights back, which really hampered you when you were trying to look at an international outreach. Okay, but now due to this Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, for a songwriter, actually, it didn't even apply to authors. It just went to creative material in general. He sought to terminate a decades-old grant of worldwide rights to the 1963 song "Double Shot" of My Baby's Love. Now, the court agreed that the termination provision in the Copyright Act restores the full bundle of rights that the creator originally transferred. Limiting recovery to U.S. rights alone would have frustrated the law's purpose of correcting unequal bargaining power. Okay, so what this means in general is when you get rights reverted to you from the publisher, it includes all rights globally. Thomas, what are your thoughts on that?
I love the Fifth Circuit. This is my local circuit, and they almost never have a case that I disagree with. Like when they have a ruling, I'm like, that's a really good ruling. And they tend to hold up in the Supreme Court. So once the Fifth Circuit has ruled on something, there may be more drama and more rounds, but it's like the Supreme Court's like, yeah, this circuit has got some really smart judges in it. So not to be biased. And I will say, it's not just in Texas. We share the Fifth Circuit with, I think, with Louisiana and Oklahoma. I forget exactly what their region is. So why does this matter? This rights reversions has become a really big deal in the last 12 to 24 months for two reasons. One is AI settlements. So we've been covering the Anthropic settlement. Authors are getting $1,000 per title, $2,000, $3,000 per title, depending on if they have their rights reversion letter in hand or not. And publishers often in their contracts are required to give you a rights reversion if you request it, and certain criteria are met. Right. But the thing is, a lot of authors don't request their rights reversion letter. And because they do this, they end up missing out on a ton of potential money right now, especially because of all of this AI drama. Now, I actually have a Patron Toolbox tool that can help you with this. It is called Not a Lawyer. And I should be very clear that this AI bot is not a lawyer.
Wait,
but it is an AI.
Is it a lawyer?
It is not a lawyer, but it can read your contract and help you draft a rights reversion request. Because you don't have to request through a lawyer. Most authors write these letters themselves. They get a book on law, or they just read the contract and understand it and write the letter themselves, or their agent does it for them. But often it's from a book from a long time ago. Maybe your agent isn't working anymore. Your agent's passed you off to another agent, and you don't really have an agent who can write this letter for you. Well, not a lawyer can write a rough draft of this letter for you and do it based off of your contract. So it will read your contract, find the clauses in your contract that are triggerable, and you can get your rights back. Now, for some authors, you can't get your rights back for free yet, depending on how your contract was worded. You haven't passed whatever thresholds or milestones, and what a book is in print, what that even means, has changed over the years, right? If an ebook is always available, how do you qualify? That's the sort of thing the bot can help analyze and sort out for you, which is really helpful. And if you are traditionally published, I would really prioritize getting your rights back on as many of your books as possible, because it's not just about the settlements. It's not just about translating your book into German and selling to German readers. It's also about having control over your book. I was talking with a traditionally published author a few days ago, and she had been a successful indie and sold a bunch of copies, done really well. And she created this whole literary universe. She had a podcast, very successful indie author. And it got the attention of a traditional publisher, a legit one. I won't say which one, but one you've probably heard of. And this traditional publisher published her the next book in her series, and it did worse because they pressured her to make changes that made the book less appealing to her target reader. She knew what her target readers wanted. They didn't, but they forced her to make changes. And then because it did worse than her previous books, they decided that this literary universe and wasn't a winner. And so even though they'd contracted for multiple books, they delayed doing the multiple books, and now they own the rights and the derivative rights. And so she's stuck. She can't publish winners, and the publisher won't publish winners, and she doesn't have a rights reversion letter. And so her recourse is to start over from scratch, which is what she did. And she actually got a contract from an even bigger publisher who's interested in her book. Really big publisher, one of the biggest.
The best.
And I was like, why did you go with this publisher? It's like, you're making money as an indie. You know what your readers want. You can deliver your book to your readers, but this publisher was so big and so prestigious, she couldn't say no. So I hope her all the best. And, if it doesn't work with that big publisher, she's got the skills and she can start over again a third time if she has to. And this is one of the things a lot of authors don't realize, is that what you have that's valuable isn't the book that you wrote. The book you wrote isn't valuable. What's valuable is your ability to write the book. And having written that book, you're now better at that, right? If you had to write that book again, right? If it accidentally got deleted on your hard drive and you had to write it again, the next version would be better because you've gotten better at writing. You have worked through things on the story, and your skill is improved, right? The carpenter doesn't just build the house builds the carpenter, as the old saying goes. So try to get your rights back as often as you can. Try to retain your rights as often as you can. And another thing Not a Lawyer can do is look over your contract for language that can hurt you down the road. So it's really good at identifying potential pitfalls. I have another AI bot called Not a Agent that can do this from an agent's perspective. So you can run a contract past Not a Literary Agent, and it will look at it with a kind of an agent's view.
Up to 10 times.
I actually don't have a limit on Not a Literary Agent at the moment. Because it's a chat bot. People will just chat with Not a Literary Agent because it also gives career advice and things like that. But anyway, these are coded differently. They run on different models, if I'm remembering correctly, like from entirely different companies. And so you can get like a second opinion. They're not meant to replace getting an agent. I'm trying to be as explicit about this as I can with the literal naming of the tools, but they're way better than nothing. And they're both way better than doing a Google search, because if the choice is between talking with Not a Lawyer and doing a Google search on your own, talk to Not a Lawyer. And then maybe you can do a Google search to verify things, but it's way better than doing a Google search. But it's not better than actually talking to a lawyer. But one of the things I found is that copyright law in general is so tilted against authors and individual human beings that in your town, there's probably no copyright lawyers. If you don't live in Nashville or New York City or Los Angeles, where the copyright lawyers work for the big corporations, the IP lawyers, if you're in a town with IP lawyers, and I live in a town with a ton of IP lawyers, and I've talked with a lot of them, and none of them do copyright law because the law is so tilted against individuals, it's not worth taking on a client because they're not going to get any money. All the money's in patents and trademarks. There's no money in copyrights because the companies that make money off of copyright law are in Nashville, in LA, and New York City. It's not individual people. These laws are not for you. Disney tweaked the law to be as hostile to you as a human as it possibly could be.
So this was a nice move for individuals and stuff like that. Now, one thing I did want to bring up is that I have a lot of, anti-trad publishing zealots in the chat, which is awesome. And normally I would agree with that, right? If you're going to go trad, this needs to be part of your strategy. It's not your entire thing. We had a saying in the Marine Corps, which is don't let anyone else have control over your life, because if you give it to them, they will take it. Right. And generally that means don't get in trouble, because then they can restrict your pay, restrict your movement, decide where you deploy, if you deploy, all kinds of great stuff. Okay. They can actually run your life. And the same thing in publishing is giving rights to something away needs to happen for a reason. So for instance, Semper Die is actually traditionally published for me. The whole reason I did that was to connect with an audience I hadn't hit before. So essentially, I am pulling from another established audience that someone had, and I did my research, and I checked, and I was like, there's actually an audience here. And I wrote Semper Die, and I gave the rights away to this traditionally published company. And man, that's been frustrating for me sometimes because I feel like I could do certain things better. but I am getting the value out of it that I wanted to get out of it. And it was a tactical decision, and it has worked for me with a story that I designed for this purpose. Now, Shades of Black is my baby, okay? I'm not ever giving Shades of Black away. I say that, and then some movie deal is going to come down the line. I'm going to regret. It's going to happen to me. But Semper Die, no, I actually created it for this purpose. It wasn't, well, this is my only option, so I guess I'll go with this. No, it was tactically evaluated, and I got the benefit out of it that I want to get out of it, and I'm continuing to reap that benefit, and I have a roadmap laid out for when I write further titles in the series as to what that's going to bring to me, at which time I'm releasing indie titles so that my trad title will funnel all of those readers into those similar titles.
The key is to get in with your eyes wide open. What often happens is authors are so dazzled by a publisher's offer, and they see the number of dollars.
They love me.
Yeah, they feel so flattered that they don't spend the time to understand every paragraph of the contract, and they assume that their literary agent is their agent. But your literary agent doesn't get paid by you. Your literary agent gets paid by the publisher. This is the same problem you have with a real estate agent buying a house. If you're buying a house, your real estate agent doesn't get paid by you. They're not working for you. They get paid by the seller of the house. And so it's very important to be careful and to read the contract yourself. And one of the reasons why I created Not a Literary Agent was to help people have better conversations with their own literary agents. There's some really great literary agents out there. I know really great literary agents. And there are also really terrible literary agents, and there are scammers that pretend to be literary agents. So there's a difference between being evil and being stupid. But sometimes the difference is kind of difficult to tell because they're both equally dangerous to your career.
Well, we ran into stories where there were literary agents out there who were acquiring material to bury them because they were
giving it to their other clients. They would steal the idea, give the idea to a different
they were ideologically aligned with a certain side of things, so they would acquire the opposite side to make sure it never got seen again, kind of like car companies burying patents for different kinds of fuel systems.
Or film companies acquiring book rights to books they never want to publish. They just don't want to keep anybody
to put
else.
them down. Or you had what you were talking about, where they were just giving the idea to authors who performed better. They liked the idea. They just wanted a different author writing it.
And there's certain kinds of conversations you can't really have with a literary agent because they have a conflict of interest, which is unfortunate because the term agent is actually like a business law term that they're supposed to be acting as your agent. But because you don't pay them, they're not really your agent. So for instance, an agent's really good at the conversation. Should I go with publisher A or publisher B? Because in that instance, they are your agent because they're going to want what's best for you because they only get a percentage of the money that you make from the publisher. So they're going to advocate on your behalf. But if your question is, should I go with publisher A or be indie published? The agent doesn't make any money if you indie publish. And so in this instance, suddenly the agent becomes an advocate for the traditional publishing industrial complex rather than an advocate for you individually, because they don't make any money with you indie publishing, but they do make money as long as you stay inside of the traditional publishing industrial complex, because that's the complex that they're in. And it's not very easy for agents to ethically make money off of their clients' indie publishing, because indie publishing isn't that hard. Once you learn how to do it, and it's not hard to learn how to do it, just listen to my podcasts, take my courses.
Even a Marine can do it. So easy, a Marine can do it.
It's only intimidating if you haven't invested a modicum of effort into the education, right? Buy one of Joanna Penn's books on how to indie publish, and you'll know it's not that complicated. And so there's not actually a lot for an agent to do. If you're smart enough to read a Joanna Penn book on how to publish a book, you're smart enough to indie publish. All right. I have
big
some news,
celebratory news.
A personal news. Novel Marketing just passed 1 million total podcast downloads. So while Novel Marketing is new to the YouTube space, so this is the author update show my main show is Novel Marketing, which is actually where Author Update started off. We kind of embryonically leached off of the Author Update or the Novel Marketing YouTube channel, but finally we broke off and became our own channel, and we got monetized. Author Update got monetized, and we made $2.77. No, $2.23 on our first day of advertising. So we are very thankful for our patrons. But anyway, I'm excited for Novel Marketing passing 1 million podcast downloads. It only took 13 years. Hopefully it won't take 13 years for the next million. I will say this, if you're curious about getting into podcasting in YouTube, one of the interesting differences is that podcast downloads are really steady. We don't see spikes, and we get about the same number of downloads now that we did 5 years ago. So that it's just this really steady, even-keeled following. Whereas YouTube is like this, especially Author Update. If it's a big news story, like people decide whether to watch this show based off of what's going on in the news. So if it's a slow news day,
how angry will this make me?
Yeah, which is unfortunate because it's the slow news days where we do more discussions about zeitgeist. Busy news days when there's a lot going on, sometimes we don't get to the zeitgeist.
Oh, man.
And our core audience really likes the zeitgeist. Speaking of which, we have some zeitgeist stories.
Zeitgeist.
So if this is your first time here, zeitgeist is when we switch into talking about culture and trends in reading behavior and trends in kind of the spirit of the age. So zeitgeist is a German word for kind of the spirit of the age or the spirit of the times. And we're actually have several zeitgeist stories we hope to get to. We don't do any hard news once we get to the zeitgeist, although this first zeitgeist story is actually going to start off as a hard news story because we're going to talk about book sales numbers and specifically Bible sales numbers. Jonathan?
Bible sales. You know, one of my favorite characters from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is John Goodman's The Bible Salesman. I just love that guy. He does such a good job. Bible sales reached record highs in the United States and the United Kingdom during 2025. Publishers tracked 19 million units sold in the US alone, which has marked an all-time best since BookScan started tracking sales 21 years ago. In the UK sales climbed 134% above levels recorded in 2008 when they first started tracking. However, religious press revenues have failed to keep up with inflation. They only have a 1% growth, like dollar growth, year to date through October, according to the Association of American Publishers. Thomas, why don't you start and I'll go after that.
Well, first off, we are 30 minutes in and we never said like and subscribe.
You just told a bunch of people to get off too. Wait, before you leave, like us.
Anyway, like, subscribe, leave an angry comment. It's really good for our engagement. Or leave a nice comment. So this is very interesting. If you look at the numbers, Bibles are flying off the shelves, and also closely Bible adjacent products. So like devotionals that are mostly Bible, or like workbooks where you're writing in them that are mostly Bible, or like Bibles that are like sections of Bibles. So like the Action Bible, which is like a Bible comic book. So the closer something is to the Bible, the better it sells. And the more judgment that the Christian traditional publishers have over the content, the worse it's selling. So you would think, we're seeing this big spiritual revival. There's going to be a flood of interest in Christian books, which is what we've seen in previous spiritual revivals, right? There's an awakening and there's this big flood of Christian books. In fact, a lot of the Christian bookstores came out of the Jesus People movement in the 70s. In fact, my mom told stories. She got saved. She became a Christian when she was in college. And her college that she was at was very hostile to Christians. And when she first got to graduate school, she's in this new college. She doesn't really know anybody. She hadn't found a church yet. She would just go to the local Christian bookstore just to be around Christians, just to be in a friendly place, a safe space, if you will. And it was like this refuge was the Christian bookstore. And the Christian bookstore was very much in tune with the challenges that she had and the questions that she had. And there's a lot of stories of this, of people who were basically discipled in their Christian walk by going through the Christian bookstore, and we're not seeing that this time.
Right.
And it's actually very interesting. Christian publishers are really struggling to sell anything other than Bibles and devotionals. If they're seeing record-breaking sales in Bibles and yet they're flat, what that means is everything that's not a Bible is down, right? Because like if you have one product line that's selling like crazy, if your other product lines are also going up, the overall revenue would go up. But the fact that the overall revenue is not going up is really telling. And I don't think it's because all of these Bible sales are King James and other like public domain translations, right? People are mostly buying the copyrighted translations that you've heard of, NIV, NLT, NKJV, most of which
easier.
And there's more options. I went to buy a Bible for a friend of mine, and I was like, wow, there are a lot of options in terms of like font size and what kind of cover you have and what color the cover is, etc. So I did an episode a couple of months ago on the Christian Publishing Show about why Christian publishers had gone woke. And I talked about how the Christian publishers overall have moved very far to the left culturally and in terms of zeitgeist, how none of them would publish Charlie Kirk. None of them would publish Megan Basham. Since I've done that episode, I've had people come to me privately and off the record with other additional examples of conservative or right-leaning books, or even just like traditional understandings of the Bible books that won't get published by Christian publishers. But everyone's so afraid of the Christian publishers that they don't want to go on the record, which I understand. One advantage of being patron supported is that I'm not really cancelable. Like somebody was talking at the beginning about, like, oh, maybe they got canceled. Author Update exists as an uncancelable podcast. We're not just a YouTube show. Something would be lost, I think, if we lost YouTube, but we wouldn't be lost. We'd still be here.
I will scream into the void.
Yes. So, and people are like, oh, well, so why wouldn't they publish Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk's like the biggest name in Christian publishing and has been for a while. You know, he was a big name way before he got killed. And his book on Sabbath has been so sold out. I ordered a copy a month ago and I still haven't received my copy. Like they are literally can't make the copies fast enough. If you go on Amazon, when I went on Amazon, there wasn't even any used copies, right? It's on the bestseller list. It's like ranking a number 10 on Amazon, and people are paying whatever the price is. As soon as somebody puts a used copy, it disappears like that, right? That is incredible demand. Why would no Christian publishers choose to publish him, right? Like that's really telling. If authors, like right-leaning authors with traditional theology, were getting published by these big publishers, the Christian publishers, they wouldn't see flat sales despite the fact that their Bibles are selling like crazy. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is where the revival is happening. So where the revival is happening right now is predominantly amongst, let's just say gym bros, right? Young masculine men, the kind of men who like go to the gym and work out. And there's nothing new under the sun. We had a revival like this in the 1880s, and there was a movement in the between the 1870s and 1890s called muscular Christianity. And most people don't know anything about muscular Christianity. They don't know anything about this movement, but we all play the sports that were invented by the muscular Christians: basketball, football. These are sports that were all invented all around the same time. And they all came out of this movement known as muscular Christianity, which y'all are welcome to look into. Again, there's nothing new under the sun. And once you understand the turnings of the culture, you can kind of know where the rhyme and the rhyming is coming from. But if you're a gym bro, if you're this like conservative red pill gym bro who's getting into the Bible, not only is there nothing at the Christian bookstore for you, there's nothing in like Big Eva evangelicalism for you. So if you look at the churches that are growing, especially in the UK, it's not the Church of England. The Church of England is fallen like
down.
A rock.
Yeah,
way down. And it's the Catholic Church that's growing in the UK because that's the more conservative church over there. The Church of England doesn't have as vibrant of a independent Baptist, like conservative evangelical movement that we have over here. Partly because they persecuted those people and they all came over.
Yeah, left. We went away. Stop yelling at
My
me.
ancestors were British, and they were conservative evangelicals, and they were persecuted by the Church of England, and they were like, this is too much hassle. And they were separatists, and they just pieced out. They came over here, and they've been here ever since. I love my British listeners, and we share common ancestors, but it's a ways back.
So, like, I'm independent Baptist, right? And I've been independent Baptist my whole life, and I'm so independent Baptist that I think other independent Baptists are wrong, which is the core principle of being an independent Baptist. I'm KJV only, the biggest, blackest arm tucker you can get. You know, it has to qualify as a weapon or something that can hold down a small child in a tornado. Like, this is the right kind of Bible to have. Throughout my life, I have found that mainline Christianity tends to be more shallow, and sensually focused, right? And what I mean by sensually is I speak of sensual morality. I want to feel like a good person. So I will take on causes that make me feel like a good person. This is why a lot of mainline evangelical denominations really do the community outreach thing. They want to feed the poor. They want to clothe the homeless. They want to do all this kinds of stuff because it's easier to get people out to do that, right? Because then they feel like good people. And that feeling is a big thing. That's why the music in these churches tends to be more of a, what do the people enjoy, as opposed to something that's actually worshipful. And there's been a lot of issues, and there's been a lot of fallback. Now, I came from the Marine Corps, right? When I would talk to Marines and they would go try a church, they'd usually go try like Calvary Chapel or something like that. Where are the most people going? And they'd come away going, that was pointless. None of that spoke to me at all. Like, and these Marines are dealing with real problems, right? Like, I'm killing people, or people are trying to kill me, or my entire life has been taken over by people that hate me or don't know about me or act like they hate me. There's real problems that they're dealing with, and they're just not getting the answers because there's not enough of the Bible happening. And just a personal example, I had a kid who was getting processed out of the Marine Corps for medical reasons, and his mom was really worried about him. And she sent him a copy of Shades of Black, because Shades of Black has a lot of what's called apologetics, or explaining of biblical principles, in it. And this kid read Shades of Black, and he's emailed me and said, because of Shades of Black, I'm going to start looking for churches to go into. And the first one he went into when he got out of the Marine Corps, he couldn't stand it. It was a mainline evangelical, very concert show oriented kind of worship service. And he just is like, I feel lost. I feel alone. But then some vet bros found him, and they took him to an independent Baptist church, you know, with all the haters, you know, and he is thriving, or he was thriving last time I heard from him, because it had the Bible in it. Okay. And what you're seeing right now is a desire for young people to go to the Bible. That's why they're going to the Bible. You see a lot of this warlike Christianity imagery and vocabulary happening on social media, and they're not finding answers in the churches that have been more shallow.
I have a good example of this.
Go ahead.
My church, how much can I say publicly? There are Christians in Turkey. Turkey is
a different kind of Christianity.
Is not a safe place to be publicly a Christian. And there was a Turkish pastor who was imprisoned for being a Christian pastor.
Yeah, I remember that story.
In Turkey. And I knew people who were connected with him, like friends. So I think I'm 1 degree of separation from this particular pastor. And so word went out that this pastor was wanting books to read in prison, because he can't interact with people. He's very lonely. He's got the Bible, but he's wanting some other books to read. And there were no Christian books that were like relevant for a pastor suffering in prison, right? Are you going to send him Your Best Life Now? Are you going to send him Girl Wash Your Face?
The Shack.
The Shack? None of these books spoke to the real suffering that he was experiencing and the uncertainty of like, am I going to get executed? Am I going to get set free? right? None of the books spoke to him. In that disconnect of real life, real suffering for your faith, and what was available at the bookstore was a real eye opener. And this was years ago. This is not some new problem inside of Christian publishing. And this trend that we've seen going back to the zeitgeist thing, if in the States, American Christians have had a choice between traditional churches with progressive theology and conservative churches with a modern expression. And I know that independent Baptists exists, but we're going to kind of put them aside for a moment. So in general, so in general, if you go to the big churches, right, you have to kind of know where to look for an independent Baptists and go searching for them. But in general, you're choosing a big, beautiful church with really progressive theology that may not even ascribe to the tenets of Christianity anymore, right? They've forsaken the gospel for the rainbow flag. Or you can go to a church that's got conservative theology, but it's a rock concert run by a bunch of Gen X folks that's just very loud and seems very out of touch. Yeah. And what is growing, and you can see this in the numbers, is what's growing the fastest are traditional churches that also have conservative theology. And then what's growing next faster is churches with conservative theology, and then everything else is shrinking. So I saw some numbers of denominations, and over the past, since the year 2000, so from 2000 to 2024, all of the denominations have shrunk. Southern Baptist, Austin American Baptist Churches USA, the Episcopal Church, Presbyterian Church USA is dropped by 58%. The ones that are growing, there's three big ones that are growing, and there's a lot of denominations, and I'm sure there's others that are growing and shrinking that weren't on this chart. But the one that was growing the most is Presbyterian Church in America, which is the conservative version of Presbyterianism. Anglican Church in North America, which is the conservative version of Anglicanism. So that's right there in that sweet spot of a traditional service, beautiful building, but also conservative theology. And then Assemblies of God, which is conservative but modern. And that's the third. That one only grew 18%. Everything else is shrinking. And so, if you're writing for a Christian audience, and I know a lot of our viewers are writing for Christians, you may be writing Christian books, but you're writing books that you want Christians to read.
Right.
You need to. Everyone's like moving to the left, and there's this trend in Christian publishing called punch to the right and coddle to the left, right? If somebody's to the right of you, you punch them as hard as you can with your words. And if somebody is to the left of them, you coddle their every whim. And that trend is bad for business. And it is out of step with the zeitgeist because all of culture is moving to the right? What are the churches that are growing? The churches to the right. What are the churches that are shrinking? The churches to the left.
You have to understand the fundamentals of where something came from, too. Christianity is designed as a warlike religion. That doesn't mean we want to go to physical war and conquer countries and stuff. But Jesus said, I come to bring a sword. Everything I'm talking about is
not against flesh and blood. Put on the armor of God. There's a lot, like if you go looking for war metaphors, you will find them.
But there's more to it, that it's structural. It's not just the words that are said. I bring a sword. There's going to be division. Families will turn against each other because of what I'm saying. Nations will turn against each other. Communities will turn against each other because of what I'm saying. There will be conflict. And then you look at, I'm going to ding Catholics here, okay? Because that's fun. What Catholics call the sacraments, okay? Like the Last Supper or the Lord's Supper and baptism and stuff. These are actually warlike traditions, okay? The Lord's Supper refers to a time where, and when you look at the Lord's Supper in the scriptures, Jesus did not drink of the last cup, okay? And you have to understand the Hebrew Passover to understand the significance of all the cups. He did not drink of the final cup because he said, I will drink of this with you when we're all in heaven. That's a warrior tradition because you go to war, and if you survive the war, you all get together afterward and you raise a cup to those that didn't make it back. And it's a time of celebration. It's a time of glory, really. And glory takes on a very different meaning because glory is earned in a warlike culture. It's not conferred. And the problem with a lot of mainline Christianity is they believe glory will be conferred. And glory is earned. You will stand with the warriors that you fought with and you will celebrate the victory, and you will celebrate the God that brought you to this victory together. And at that day, he will raise the cup with you. I talked about this in Shades of Black 2 Afterlight, and I don't know if anyone got it. But it's a warlike tradition. Remember me. This is my body. Remember me. This is my blood. Remember me. And no culture does memorializing better than warlike cultures, because we lose people constantly and they just want to be remembered. You know, like end of the 13th Warrior, one of my favorite parts is Bolvi saying, I could be thought wealthy if someone wrote down my story, if I could be remembered.
And to connect this with the zeitgeist, we spend a lot of time thinking about the last fourth turning, which is in the 1940s, 1930s. But if you go back one more fourth turning, go back to the 1860s, what do we see was started in the 1860s? That's when muscular Christianity took off. I was off a little bit. It started in the 1850s. The movement of muscular Christianity started off in the 1850s. So right as they were transitioning from the third turning to the fourth turning. But you know what else started? 1865, the Salvation Army, which originally was not a thrift store. Originally, it was a denomination that was structured. So they didn't have bishops, they had generals. And they didn't have pastors, they had like sergeants, or like they used military language all up and down, and they would go on these missions sharing the gospel and feeding the poor. And I actually ran into somebody who was a part of the Salvation Army's like theological arm. Still exists to this day. Very much that kind of like it very much very different than it was originally, but that's what was resonant. And the Salvation Army grew and grew and grew all during that era, partly because it was resonant, right? It was this warlike expression of Christianity, not in the sense that they were war, but they had that warlike ethos, that muscular Christianity, that we're going to play football and we're going to feed the poor, and then we're going to preach the gospel on the street corner and play a band. They were big on the band. They'd have like somebody blast a tuba, and then somebody would get up and preach the gospel and start talking about Jesus. And they'd often do it right outside of a saloon too. so they were great. They go right in front of a saloon, they blast a bunch of music, and then they talk about how everybody in the saloon was damned and going to hell unless they repented, right? It was a very different expression of this same gospel, and very much of the last fourth turning. So I don't have a whole lot more to say on this. Hopefully this kind of gives you a sense of like culturally where things are headed. And
so there's going to be a hunger. There's going to be a hunger for good biblical material that's going to feed this surge of muscular interest, I guess we'll call it. Okay. And keep in mind, this is a very masculine kind of surge. Okay. Conflict based, or at least conflict facing kind of Christianity. And so as you're creating your stories, be thinking about that's happening at the same time. Even if you're not writing to a male audience, you're writing to females who are going to be associated with this male audience and might need to know how to navigate it, or how to ride along with it, or what it is they're going to be doing. Keep that in mind. This is the trend that's happening right now.
There's one more thing I'll add here, and this is another part of a zeitgeist we're going to do for another time, but I'll combine it. The Christian Reformed Church in America is in the process of going through a church split, and this is a very notable church split because it's the first split that I can think of in decades and decades where the conservatives are maintaining the church, and it's the liberals that are leaving. So in every church split for the last 100 years that I can think of, the church gets more progressive in its theology, and it finally gets so progressive that the conservatives leave. And the liberals are left with the institution, all of the institutional power and all of the institutional money. And for the first time, just in the last few months, that is reversing, where the conservatives are like, no, we are going to fight for the institution, and the liberals can leave. And this is a big deal. The Christian Reformed Church in America is not big in my area. It's a super Calvinistic denomination that are, I think, too Reformed for Presbyterians. But they're going through a split right now, and the institutions, the big publishing arm that publishes their magazine and their books, and their university, and the main body of their churches are staying with the conservative core, and the leftist, LGBT affirming, and Canadian congregations are leaving. And so I think we'll see if this is the beginning of a trend culturally in terms of churches, and because we saw similar things with the Southern Baptist Convention. And so anyway, this is something to watch from a cultural perspective. And the chat is blowing up, and I'm not reading any of these things.
I am.
So, or do we need to respond to any of the chat, or do you want to move on to the next story?
It's intra chat kind of stuff.
So. The next story is much lighter, but it's still very telling.
It's deeper. I will die on this hill.
So we're talking about culture, and fonts, which are near and dear to all of our hearts, have been politicized. So for some background, the United States government used, since the misty dawn of time, or at least since as long as I could remember, Times New Roman, which is a good traditional serif font, very boring, very staid, very normal. And then under the Biden administration, they switched all of the State Department documents from Times New Roman to Calibri, which is a sans serif font. So it wasn't just like a minor change from Times New Roman to Booker or something.
I hate Calibri so much.
and so Marco Rubio, when he became Secretary of State, in addition to running half of the government, one of his missions was to purge Calibri from the State Department and move back to Times New Roman. Now, he could have said, we're doing this to save paper because Times New Roman is one of the most space efficient fonts, and we're saving whole forests of trees. No, that is not the argument. The argument is that Times New Roman is a conservative font and Calibri is a progressive font. And the internet is like now fighting the font battles. So I'm going to, I know Jonathan has a lot of thoughts on this, and I know you all have thoughts, and we'll pull them up, but I want to share Michael Knowles' take on this, because I feel like this captures the zeitgeist of where we're at, where even fonts have politics now. So Michael Knowles says, sans serif fonts in their inhuman minimalism are for libs. Serif fonts, with their delightful and elegant adornments, elevate the soul. This return to tradition is not only a welcome change, but literally significant. Welcome to 2026, everybody.
I don't care this much. Look, the way I learned it is sans serif fonts is for sci-fi, and serif fonts is for fantasy. Oh man.
But this is touching to a deeper zeitgeist issue. There's a trend. There's a meme I saw recently that showed interior colors by decade, what the most unpopular interior colors were. And they went from bright, vibrant, saturated colors, and over the decades, they're becoming more and more beige, more and more muted, until now it's all various versions of sad beige. Right? It's a sad beige clothes for sad beige children. Right? So, and the same with architecture. Imagine a building built in the 1800s with the columns and the statues and the adornments and the decorations. And now imagine, let's admit 1880s, and now let's go to the 1980s, where it's this brutalist, solid glass and steel, and there's no adornments, there's no decoration, there's no art. And people are very fatigued of brutalism. It is hard to find somebody who will actually give a defense of a brutalism architecture. And I've been to Russia. I've seen true brutalism. If you think it's bad here, oh my goodness, the Soviets built their buildings to withstand war and for no other purpose. Were they comfortable to live in?
The sky.
No. Were they beautiful to look at? No. Could they survive a nuclear war? We don't know, but maybe. And thank God we never had to find out. So there's an argument that's like, oh, well, we went with brutalism. We went with these minimalistic fonts and getting rid of adornments, and everything all looks the same to save money. And that's partly true. It's not true in this font case, because it's actually more money to use Calibri because it's a less space efficient font. So it costs more money, it costs more trees to print with Calibri than with Times New Roman. But to build a brutalistic building is more expensive potentially than to build an artistic, beautiful building. But what does your culture value? What is your culture willing to spend money on? You can look at a lamppost from 1880 in London, let's say, and compare it to a lamppost from 1980. The 1880 lamppost might have statues. It may have carvings. It's beautiful. And it's preserved because it's in subsequent generations are like, wow, that's a really pretty lamppost. But when the subsequent generations build the lamppost, they build this minimalist monstrosity that's invisible at best and ugly at worst.
Yeah.
And I think that, and we're seeing this with books. We've mentioned this several times just today, but we've been covering it on Author Update. Special editions.
Yeah.
Readers are willing to spend as much as $100 for a book that the substance of the book is identical. It's the same words. But this book has sprayed edges. This book has artistic embellishes. This book has flourishes. This book has serifs.
The book contributes to the home, right? And this is a big deal for like if I'm buying a special edition, I don't care if it has sprayed edges. I don't care if it has a bunch of little curly leaves around the edge or whatever. I do care that it has extra stuff in it. Extra short stories, extra, whatever's illustrations. I do find that valuable. What I have found with females is they love the book to make their house look better. This is the kind of person I am because I have these kinds of books in my house. And that's a major consideration to have, because look at Hobby Lobby. They're making their entire business model based on chicks filling their houses with crud that defines them, and it's personality defining. So be keeping this in mind when people are looking at the kind of book that they're getting. It might just be more than the book you wrote. It might be the way the book looks, depending on what kind of audience you're targeting here. Wingdings. I have never even seen the font Wingdings. Like
it's emojis. It's like proto emojis. It's not a real font. That was a joke. That wasn't actually. But this is Elizabeth is pointing out that this is true even in fashion, right? Where there's been this move towards minimalism, this move towards kind of this anti-humanist clothes that aren't comfortable and aren't beautiful, but are able to be mass produced. They're inexpensive and they're constantly changing. Where the fashions it's fast fashion, right? It's not about being comfortable or practical or beautiful. It's about being current. And 6 months from now, we're going to be getting different clothes from Temu because the fashions are going to be changed. And it's like, I think people are getting fatigued of that. There's still demand for that. And if you're a Temu clothes seller, you're making good money. But where we are in the zeitgeist, as we move into the first turning, I think people are going to long for kind of enduring quality, and they're going to long for beauty. And there is a rebellion against plain, simple churches, right? People want beautiful churches. In fact, we experienced this. My family, we were up in the Dallas area over the weekend visiting some family around Christmas time. And we're like, we want to go to a beautiful church. We want our children to see stained glass. Our church isn't ugly. It's not in a grocery store, but it's not beautiful in kind of the classic sense. There's no flying buttresses or stained glass. And so I made the mistake of doing I think I asked Grok, where are some of those beautiful churches in the DFW area? And we were not the only people looking for a beautiful church. We ended up missing half the service because there was no parking. We had to park like a mile away. The parking garage was full. All the surrounding streets were full. Everything was full. And so we're loading up all of our children in the stroller and like hiking it across Dallas to get to this beautiful church. And other people were wanting to see go to a beautiful service. That the beauty was a value that was worth driving extra for enough people in Dallas to make this church, which was by every other accounts very generic. Like the church had nothing that was offensive in it, but it was very kind of down the middle of the road, but it was offset in terms of attendance by the beauty of the space.
I do appreciate beauty. Like I love the style of the Catholic cathedrals. I thought the destruction of the Notre Dame Cathedral was a travesty. Actually a crime against, the history of humanity. Stained glass is fantastic. I love what the Mormons are doing with a lot of their temples. They look gorgeous. Even a lot of the mosques look really nice. But I think coming from the culture that I come from a very functional, warlike, because when you have beauty, you need to preserve it, right? Women with fair skin will carry umbrellas to protect themselves from the sun. There's a lot of things that go into play to protect your nails, protect your hair, protect your skin, whatever. And when beauty is of value associated with your worship, you are more inclined to do what it takes to protect the beauty. And that's something I appreciate and also value, but it is not aligned with what I do. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
there's also a regional culture here and a theological pedigree here that also is affecting. So culture is not just this revolving cycle of the turnings.
Right.
Individual people groups also have their own cultures, and theological expressions have their own cultures. So independent Baptists draw their ancestry back to the Anabaptists, and they're actually connected with the Mennonites. Which is interesting because the Mennonites are pacifists, and Jonathan is very much not a pacifist. But if you go back,
I'm not a Mennonite.
up his family tree, and a form of Mennonites is the Amish. In the Amish eschew adornment, and there is a kind of beauty in an Amish chair that's a quintessential American beauty, which is a very simple, very functional chair that has no adornment, but the quality is like at 11, right? Where the actual craftsmanship is very high, despite the fact that it's lacking adornment. And that is very American, where we don't have a lot of lace, right? Partly because the British, there was, I think the British put a tax on lace in addition to tea. And so it became very unfashionable during the Revolution to wear lace.
If you wore lace, you were associating
it's a European
with
thing.
Yeah.
And so part of that goes back really far, and part of culture is who you are as a people. And this is one of the challenges that we have as authors. If you're writing for an American audience, America is made up of multiple nations, ethnic nations, and I have a whole episode on this that breaks it down. So a lot of really great research that's gone in this. You can track it through family trees. You can even track it linguistically, what words you use. Somebody who's savvy enough on this can know your genetic ancestry by which words you use and what part of the country you're from. And your book won't resonate with all 10 nations. There's a lot of nations that are very different from each other. And for those of y'all coming to the Novel Marketing Conference, Austin is at the borderland between the nation of El Norte, which is the south of the United States, against the border of Mexico, which is a very Mexican influenced culture. And it's at the very bottom of a region known as Greater Appalachia, which I think is one of the least known nations in the United States, because there's just not a lot of media that covers Greater Appalachia, but it's one of the most populous. If you learn how to write for Greater Appalachians, you'll do very well. And Greater Appalachia is filled with the most warlike Americans. Jonathan's ancestry is from Greater Appalachia.
Come at me, bro.
And and the Marines draw a disproportionate number of their recruits from the South, capital T, capital S, the South, and from Greater Appalachia.
So the cultural perspective on this is, I do value beauty, but the beauty that I value is not something that I wear or something that I put on or something that I see. It's an unvarnished legacy of honor and victory, and those that have gone before me, and I am aligned with those values as well. That's one of the big draws of the Marine Corps. Is, we'll talk about stuff that happened in the past. Shores of Tripoli, that's when like 10 Marines took on an entire fortress by themselves of the Barbary pirates. They just snuck in and killed them all. Like, and that had never happened
all
before.
You need.
Everyone was just like, okay, that can happen, I guess. And it continues to go on. The Battle of Midway, when the Japanese dropped their own Marine Corps on the island, and Marines didn't have comms up because the Japanese accidentally bombed the comms antenna. So Marines fought without orders, by themselves, isolated in their bunkers, against this unified Japanese invasion force, and the Marines tore them to shreds. In fact, the only thing that made the Marines lose is that their dumb officer who didn't have comms thought he was losing and came out and told them all to surrender. Officers. But that's what I look back on. I look back on Fallujah. I look back on World War II, Iwo Jima. I look back on those kids in oh crap, I can't remember the country now. I think it's Jordan. Those two guys who held the gate even when the VBID was coming at them, and they shot the driver down and kept the VBID outside of the gates so that their Marines inside didn't get hit by the explosion, and both of them died. That is the beauty that I seek to create in life. It's a legacy, it's a history, it's a continuance of that kind of thing, and it's harder to do.
It's a beauty of character. It's an internal kind of spiritual beauty rather than a physical beauty.
Yeah.
And your book can have both. Yeah, but how you market it and what you emphasize, I imagine, Jonathan, you're not the kind of person who'll spend extra for a special edition. Very often.
I would have to love the story of that book.
I've got some special edition.
It has to define my personality.
Right. Yeah.
See, Brandon Sanderson doesn't define my personality because I don't identify with any of his heroes. They're not hard enough. I almost liked that one guy who I can't remember. It begins with K. Kaladin. Yeah, I was going Caliban when I was wrong. I almost like him. But the rest I don't identify with at all. They're just soft in weird places. And I think Brandon Sanderson is just a nice guy. I think what he's creating from is just a very nice place.
He just loves
nothing
everybody.
Against him. I'm glad people like his books. They don't reach me.
So let us know what you think in the comments. How and where you see beauty. And one last thing I'll say is the beauty of the story, the beauty of the characters versus the beauty of the sentences. Different readers care about different things. Some readers really don't like Brandon Sanderson because they don't think his sentences are beautiful enough.
Yeah.
But others really like him because they think his characters are beautiful. And others like him because they think his plots are beautiful or the magic system is beautiful. And people can be beautiful in many different ways, right? There's more than one kind of beauty, but you have to be some kind of beauty if you want readers to buy your book. And you have to know which beauty is your best beauty, right? You need to know which side is your best side forward. Somebody asked about the Author Arsenal, where to find it. There is a YouTube channel called Author Arsenal.
Yeah.
And Jonathan hasn't posted that video on Kickstarter yet to Author Arsenal. He says he'll do it tonight. And if he doesn't, you have my permission to mock him.
Dogpile me. Do it. Do it. I deserve it.
All right. We will be back next week with another episode of Author Update. We're here on 4 p.m. Central on Fridays. Thank you all so much for liking and subscribing and for sharing the show with a friend. I'm Thomas Umstattd Jr.
And I'm Jonathan Sugar Jr.
Live long and prosper.